I'm Jim Check. With me, Scott Deedles from Block Rewards. We're here with the Bitcoin Show. What's going on in the Bitcoin world? People are just kind of like taking a little bit of profits. Traders going crazy.
Our people are dying of boredom. This is the weirdest time I think that I've been involved with Bitcoin. The price has been over 100,000 US since early June, and nobody's excited. There isn't, typically what you see in, Bitcoin cycles are like spikes in the Google searches, and it has hit a new all-time high in the last couple of weeks, up to 125, and Google searches haven't followed. There's a weird sort of malaise around the how stable Bitcoin is. It always gets criticized for how volatile it is, and now it's range trading and nobody's excited.
Well, I think you and I talked about this a couple of shows back and saying as the traders come in, as the investment banks come in, JP Morgans and all these guys come in, you're going to find the ranges tighten up, and then you're going to see the traders will come in there and they're okay with a few shekels on either side, right? They'll likely sell 125, buy 110, sell 125, buy one, you know what I mean? So it brings volume in, which is really good because it flushes out weak hands, but you see this in many markets as they come in. The bands kind of tighten up and it takes away some volatility, which usually what happens is it brings in bigger players, because a lot of big players don't like big volatility. So, big companies then can look at it and say, okay, it's not so volatile. So it's a trade-off, right? You're missing those huge spikes, but you're also seeing it kind of like trade more like an asset too, right? Where you're starting to see more the range tightens up. Like there's probably right now algorithms out there that are selling 125 and buying 110. Do you know what I mean? Like you'll see that, right? It'll just go in that range bound. You can see the chart of Nick, if you can pull up the chart here. You're going to kind of see basically since July, right? You're going to see there, it's basically selling 120, 125, right? And buying 110.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been an interesting, actually, Friday was the largest single day crash in the history of Bitcoin, dropping from, I don't know the exact numbers, 124 down to, I think all the way down to 102, just briefly. And, in the past, there was the last really big Bitcoin single day crash happened in May of 2021. That was actually when Elon was first running his mouth about selling the Tesla's Bitcoin. And, I thought when this started happening on Friday that we were going to see more of a prolonged downturn. But this is to your point, what you're talking about. There was just a massive amount of buying strength as, and it never even got to 100.
And why you likely saw that crash down, the traders leave the desk for the holidays, right? Like, some traders leave and then little bits of volume can actually push it further, right? Because, like those buy-sell stops are not there as much, but there's probably a lot of buy orders at 110. There's probably a lot of buy orders sitting there at 110. I mean, this is just all speculation, but you can see how, and we talked about this probably, a month and a half ago, how once you see the bigger investment banks in there, they actually they have trading accounts and they have long-term investment accounts, and their trading accounts are quite active, right? And they do the same thing with gold. They do the same thing with silver. They do the same thing with everything. Let's pull up a gold chart. You're going to kind of see it right now. And right now, they're not selling gold, right? Like it's mostly everything is seen as a buy. So the other trading rule is typically never get in the way of an arrow, right? Just let it go, right? Just let it determine where the top is. I mean, it looks like gold should top out because nothing ever goes straight up. Obviously, you can see over time, but gold, if you're looking at this as a trader, it's somewhere in the overbought territory, I would guess, right? But you never guess a top. Top will define itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all these different assets, we say this kind of all the time, but silver running, Bitcoin, gold, they're just, in this case, I think more indicators and warning lights that there's a growing and broadening concern about the health of a number of different currencies. So I don't know that this is like a normal market, and it makes me think of a tweet I saw this morning. It was like, the joke was that my biggest regret in life was not going long on gold in 1961. And, it's like trade that can play out over a very long time. Actually, to get conspiratorial, back to the Bitcoin thing, factually, there was a trader that opened a $300 million short position minutes before Trump made his announcement. And so there's an interesting, there's been a pattern of these very coincidental giant short positions to get opened corresponding to Trump announcements.
That would have been ugly. Yeah, so traders bring in, volatility, stability, and, like even short positions on stocks, people will say that's horrible. How do you short a stock? But then, somebody will say, well, I mean, it also brings in, like, it takes away that over exuberance too, because, like if you just have buyers, Bitcoin shoots to $1 million and it shoots all the way back to 100 grand, right? So that doesn't really do much for the market stability either, right? So a lot of people want stability in assets. So it's building a good floor at 100, 110 though, right? I mean, that's what, like if you were a trader, you would look at that and say, there's a pretty solid floor there at 100, 110. Do you know what I mean? Like a really solid floor at 100, and then 110, it looks like it's basing, because you can kind of see those, if you pull that chart up again, Nick. And you can kind of see that.
There's rumors that the Fed is getting ready to end a tightening cycle. And the last time they did that, Bitcoin went from 5,000 to 69,000 in 8 months. So,
but you look for those things, right? You look for this basing moments, and then you look for catalysts, right? So, and you look at market, and you'd say to yourself, so what are the catalysts that are still coming up for Bitcoin? None of the wind is still in the sails. There's no like detractors. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no major detractors that I can see, right? And you can look at that in like stocks, and you would say, like, say if you were even looking at Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola may have this, like slowly up, but I mean, what's the big driver for Coca-Cola? I mean, it's a like a if anything, there'd be negativity, right? Health, people would be buying less and less Coca-Cola. I think, I think that the market for, although they sell other products, but you know what I mean? It's old in its product life cycle, and I would say this thing is very new in its product life cycle.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the narrative that I believe is one sort of pushed forward by Michael Saylor from Strategy. We talk about all the time, and that's the notion that Bitcoin is in a secular bull market that will probably come to an end around 2034, which is when most of the 99.9% of the Bitcoin will have been mined and released into the ecosystem by then. And so, Bitcoin has had parabolic bull runs and big drawdowns, but if you look at the chart in terms of monthly closes back to the creation of Bitcoin, it basically just looks like a single vertical line. And so that's kind of where I think, and back to this, there's a new base forming. I think we're getting ready to go a lot higher.
I mean, if I said to most people in Bitcoin 2 years ago and said, if you could have a base at 100 grand, would you take it? And they'd probably say, damn right. But I know that a lot of people that are trying to sell $1 million, they're just like, oh, this is so frustrating. It's like watching like a pot boil. And do you know what I mean?
I mean, this is the kind of thing that I think has gotten really funny about Bitcoin and just assets in general in this day we're living in, where it's gone up 3 or 4x in the last year and a half or 2 years, and that's
not enough, right?
It's not enough. It's not enough.
and that's the case. And here's even the better one for psychological for most people. Right now, they'll look at it and they'll see 110. Oh, I can't buy it. It's going down. I'm not buying it. I am absolutely not buying it. It's going down. And then it goes back to 125. I got to buy it because it's going up, right? You know what I mean? Totally. Instead of like a trader, you would look at it and say, okay, I buy it 110, I sell it 125. I buy it 110, I sell it. You know what I mean? Like you see that there's Bollinger Bands, there's tons of technical tools, right? But psychology of a lot of people is, as it goes down to 110, they're just like, oh, it's over. There's no way I'm buying it, right? And then it goes to 125 and just, I got to buy it, right? And then these people, when it goes back to 110, I knew it. This thing is crap, right? So,
I mean, and even on Friday, when you see this, it can have a move like that in a single day, and all of the people want to come back out of the woodwork and say, like, see, this is why it'll never be this or it'll never be that. It's like, it can't be a store value because it just, it's now they're only worth 110,000. And like, this thing was $1 15 years ago. So
if anybody's interested in technical trading, you can start with just a ruler. Just start with a ruler, right? Like you say, you just plot lines, right? There's support lines, there's resistant lines, and all that thing. And the good thing is that Bitcoin is now trading like many assets, and like I said, the big investment firms look for that, right? They like that. It's they don't like, like speculation is for like small firms where because they can't explain to their client why they lost 80% of their value in one day, right? They can't, you know what I mean? Like that's not an asset they want to put a lot of their clients into. But if something is moving 5, 10, 15%, that's great, right? That's what they want, right? So, Bitcoin looks technically to me, it looks, there's no breakdown. You can go read some of the technical guys. I mean, I could make a case for a technical breakdown. I could make a case for a technical, like, you know what I mean? Like there's tons of stuff there, but you kind of have to take technicals with what's happening as well with fundamentals. And that's where you kind of blend. I used to do a newsletter called Canadian Market Watch, where you would take technicals, reason to look at it, and just like looking at resumes, and you look at the fundamentals and see whether or not it's worth buying, right? Like if you look at a stock like Coca-Cola, late in its product life cycle. So, I mean, if you're looking for a dividend stock, yeah, great. If you're looking for a growth stock, probably not, right? Like, I mean, there's a ton more stocks out there that are growth stocks. NVIDIA. Like, if you don't own NVIDIA in your portfolio and you have stocks, like, I don't know what you're smoking, but hey. Let's look at gold for a second, though, too, because gold obviously has had a great year, and this is where I think Michael Saylor and Frank Jurista there had that big thing, and then one's right, one's wrong, depending on timing, right? Timing is everything, right?
Yeah.
After they had that discussion, Frank looked like the genius, and Michael Saylor looked like like the guy that was. And then a year later, Frank looks like the idiot, and Michael Saylor looks like an absolute genius, right? So, but over the long term, both of them look pretty damn good, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think we said this at the time. Both of them obviously very smart guys, and there's nothing wrong with having a difference of opinions. But
yeah, so gold right now looks really strong. Like it looks really strong, and I guess if we even look at Canada, we talked about economic winter. You got me that one guy to speak, and it did really well. But and I want to find some more guys that want to talk about economic winter and what to do, how to get a jacket, or like flee to sunnier climates, and some of that is moving assets out of Canadian dollars and into gold, silver, Bitcoin, and other assets, in other jurisdictions, stocks, all that kind of stuff, right? Priced in different currencies. Because right now the Canadian dollar, if we pull that chart up there, it looks pretty sick. Like it does not look healthy at all, right? Like the Canadian dollar looks really sick, right?
Yeah, and I think that one's getting worse, and unfortunately, we don't have, I think, a much good reason to believe that the loonie has any near-term hope of a turnaround.
Yeah, and I think the bigger thing is I think when that budget drops, and if they don't do something about a pipeline rate, like soon, I don't know. Like, I mean, there's talk that 62 cents is in the cards. I'm gonna pull up it just doesn't look very strong right now. The Canadian dollar looks fairly weak, and I'm gonna just change this here. I'm gonna pull up a chart here, though. I just got to switch it because I'm just looking at it and thinking. Just gonna copy it here for Nick. It looks pretty sad. But what do I know, right? I mean, it's all about how you interpret a chart, right? So if you can pull that up, Nick, there, the Canadian dollar. But so people look for alternatives to it, right? Because if we talked about that Venezuela story, you and I think as well, and like some people lost 98% of their wealth, and Venezuela was the wealthiest country in South America, and again, no different than Canada, very rich in oil. And they nationalized oil, chased away all the investors, and they turned it into just a absolute garbage can. And then they got into a fight with the Americans to top it off. If you can make that smaller there. And you can see the dollar trending down, right?
You're talking about trend lines. It's not a very promising
well, that's the year chart. And and then if we take it about from a fundamental analysis and we say what are the catalysts for an up and what are the catalysts for down? And like the budget not going to be friendly to the dollar, right? a record deficit, that's not friendly. So that's a catalyst down if we look at it from a fundamental perspective. If they announced an oil pipeline, like from Alberta to the North Coast, that would be a driver up. What are the chances?
I wouldn't bet my own. I wouldn't bet any Bitcoin on it, Jim.
Do you know what I mean? So if you look at it from a fundamental thing, and these are the same thing. If you want to do technicals, you look at that and you say, so what could drive the Canadian dollar up right now? They got to drop interest rates, or they're going to have a mortgage implosion, and a mortgage implosion would even drive the dollar further down.
Mm-hmm.
And then that budget is not going to be friendly to this dollar. I don't know. Do you see any reason why, as an investor, and like I also had a chart this morning on our show. We do the daily show. Since 2020, the biggest buyer of the Bank of Canada bonds is, the Canadian bonds is the Bank of Canada.
Yeah. I mean, and Japan started down this road like 30 years ago in the 90s. And today it's the same thing, where the Bank of Japan is the only market for Japanese bonds is the Bank of Japan. And, that it just doesn't work. And the yen carry trade is like a teetering right now. The problem is, you can't just lower rates. There's the free market for these things, and it has to do with the demand of if there's anyone buying these things on the open market or not. The interest rate will eventually have to equate out to a number where somebody is willing to take some of this stuff, right?
Yeah, it's like if you're getting your ideas from Bloomberg and that. Remember CNBC and those guys? They had a funeral for Bitcoin at 9,000, I think it was. They had like an actual funeral on air and said that was the end of Bitcoin, right? So
yeah,
I don't know, but again, if we look at the fundamentals and you talk about what the catalyst could be for Bitcoin, one of the catalysts, we got Elon Musk. He sent me this tweet here, and Elon is talking about Bitcoin again. And here's the richest guy in the world, saying Bitcoin is based on energy. You can issue fake fiat currency, and every government in history has done so, but it's impossible to fake energy. I mean, he would be what you would say a very influential figure in the Bitcoin world, right? I mean, a lot of these, and then again, you look at the administration, the U.S. administration right now, very favorable to Bitcoin, and that includes the whole Trump family, and then just in the Treasury and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Elon tweet, there's really two things that are interesting and noteworthy about it. One is you're just seeing a lot more talk about currency debasement and money printing in the kind of public zeitgeist. And like that was going back, Elon hasn't talked publicly about Bitcoin a lot, but he was talking a lot about overspending in the government. And like, so this is something that is becoming like more mainstream. It doesn't matter where you live. I think everybody's starting to understand that there's some kind of a relationship between bloated governments and like the cost of groceries. And the other thing that he's talking about there, the reason why it matters that Bitcoin has this tie to energy is because of, we're starting to get a better idea about how much electrical demand is going to be produced by these massive data centers for AI. And Kevin O'Leary is proposing this big AI data center in Alberta. Like there's going to be theoretically like a never-ending demand for energy consumption, like as computing power through AI goes to infinity. And so there's going to just have to be some other way to think about how we store monetary value to have it make sense in a sensible way. So where Elon is going there, I think, is that there's going to have to be a finite form of accounting as electrical energy consumption. And this is a guy who really knows, right? Because he's building these massive data centers in Texas. So,
yep.
Yeah.
So one of the things, though, for energy, the scary thing about energy and AI is that one day it might say, like, I need that energy, and you don't, right? And it controls all the grids and just says, at this point, I don't have any to spare.
Yeah. I mean, so there's an argument in Bitcoin that basically, the only thing that could theoretically be an argument for spending energy on something other than AI. You know, if AI continues to become more useful and more intelligent, would be on a financial asset that would be, you know, also going to infinity. And that's kind of the idea of what Bitcoin is doing. It's like that's where the price is trending if you continue out this pattern and think about a long enough time frame. So in a world where AI can do anything, it can produce anything, it can think anything, and it can consume an infinite amount of energy, really the only sensible thing you could spend energy on other than AI would be on like the most valuable financial tool in the world.
Yeah, the other one to watch though right now is silver. Like silver is it's broken out. It has broken its all-time high, and silver is usually a multiple of gold. Like when it breaks out, so silver could just because it's a poor man's gold, and lots of people, again, psychology-wise, think, well, I can buy 1 ounce of gold for 4,000, but I can buy lots of ounces of silver. But like gold obviously still is worth more in the long run, but it's just a psychological thing, and it can drive the price of silver fairly high. And both of them are related to, they have industrial use, both are related to the energy industry as well, both are big conductors. And
I was surprised to see silver. I have been making fun of silver investors for a long time, and so congrats for those ones,
hey,
the true believers.
That is we're going to put up the chart here, because that is the real test for a lot of people, right? Like the silver people, because yes, they've been beat up over time, because if you could put that chart up, Nick, because it sat forever, like once we get the chart up here, I'll show you.
I mean, in real terms, if you've been investing in silver since the 80s, you've been absolutely destroyed.
Still not doing very well, right?
Yeah. There's a really famous Canadian Bitcoiner. His name's Brad Mills, and Brad is an investor of ours. And Brad had tweeted this morning. Brad was buying Bitcoin at $10, and at the same time, he was buying silver. So his tweet was something like, his silver position is finally in profit, and his Bitcoin position is up 1.2 million%. So
no, silver is it. But there's some diehard silver guys, like absolute diehard guys. And again, like the Hunt brothers there, and it just blew through that. You can see it breaking that level there. But yeah, the correlation between gold and silver, that means that silver, like if there's a lot of people say that silver is going to go to, whatever numbers, right? Like crazy numbers. I don't even want to say the numbers. They're so crazy. But I think if there's some, I guess you would say, more conservative people saying that 65 is in the cards right now.
Yeah, and these are things I wouldn't, it's nice to get a win as an investor, but none of these are exciting things. If you think about, they're all sort of like currency debasement trades, and they all sort of suggest that the market in broad consensus assumes that paper money is not a desirable thing to hold regardless of where you live.
I think that the thing to look at is you look at the catalysts and the fundamentals, and then look at that and see what drives it. And then and we look at what the future of the world holds, and like the transactional part of the world, where it's going to be quicker and quicker, and where it's going to be robots actually transacting with other robots, and it's going to be hard for them to exchange, like doubloons or whatever you want to call them, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless they're going to put slot machines in some of the cars or something like that. I don't know, but I doubt it.
No, bits.
What's that?
It'll be bits.
Yeah, so that's that it will be digital currencies, and again, the catalysts and the fundamentals look pretty strong for Bitcoin. But I mean, you make your own investment decision and take a look around and ask yourself some questions, and technical trading. And I think that's where we're at with Bitcoin. I think we're in that technical range of trading, which I mean, you're going to have these over-enthusiastic guys right now that are super, and they may have bought it at some cheap price too, and they're in the money, but it's never fast enough, right? Because it's no different than penny stocks. Like, say even if they're up, let's just pick some numbers. Say they're up $3 million, and then it's down, and they're only up $2.5 million. They think they're in a loss position, right? They think that they're losing money, and that this is horrible, and it's just how this thing is supposed to be like If only it goes back up to 20 million or something, then they're always doing these calculations. If this thing goes to 20 million, I'm going to be this, that, and another thing. And
I mean, a lot of people are doing that with their houses right now too.
Yeah, here's the thing: like, you don't make any money. Like, if you want to talk about when you transact it because money is still a transaction for a hard good at some point, whether you eat or buy a house or, you know what I mean. You do something, pass it on, generational wealth, or whatever you do with it. It is an exchange of goods at some point. So, and you don't make anything until you actually transact, right? So, you know,
yeah.
So, in paper gains, I've seen it in stock markets. I've seen guys make. And I used to do accounting in a CPA firm or CA firm then, you know, up 20 million bucks, and then they don't sell any of it, and they're back to parking cars.
Round trip, yeah.
Paper rich for a while, and just like anything, right? Just, but I do think right now Canada may be heading for that economic winter. And what kind of jacket do you have? What kind of jacket do you have to weather that storm is the question, right? And Bitcoin would be a jacket. Gold would be a jacket. You know, these are kind of the things that diversify. Because if you think about what happened to people in Venezuela, and maybe we'll leave it there because we've done a long show. In Venezuela, people that held, I think it was the Bolivar, isn't it? That what the currency is in Venezuela? If you held that, you're basically wiped out. Like, you know, if your bank account was full of GICs and assets denominated in Bolivar, and even your pensions, all that stuff basically wiped out. And if your debts were in a variable currency, you were more than wiped out because your debts would have skyrocketed as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. It's confusing the risk around, you know, what you might think the risk profile is of an asset is, where I think a lot of people in Canada, especially right now, are underestimating the risk of the counterparty being the Bank of Canada. And, you know, there's not a lot of reason to be optimistic about the job they're doing, and buyer beware.
I think, you know, if they come out and announce a pipeline to the North Coast, that'll do really well for the Canadian dollar. That'll be a sign that Canada's going to tap its resources. But if they say no, and they push this budget out that's just you know, an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do I know, right? What do I know? Yeah. So anything else you want to add today?
No, you know, like I said, the only other noteworthy news story was the U.S. Department of Justice seized another 130,000 Bitcoin, or announced that they're in the process of it today. And it's a funny story because earlier this year, one of the big Trump announcements was that the Department of Justice was no longer going to sell the Bitcoin that they seized. And people thought that was a precursor to the announcement the U.S. was going to buy a bunch of Bitcoin.
Right.
But actually, it looks like they might be able to just seize enough to establish a fairly significant strategic reserve. So I think they have over 300,000 Bitcoin now seized, which is a humongous number. And
well, that's $14 billion seizure just on that one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And where did that come from? What was the seizure? Do you know?
Yeah, it was a criminal ring from Central Africa, and yeah,
14 billion bucks, just like that, hey?
Just like that.
Wow. Yeah, crazy. It has been used for that. That is, you know, part of the thing, and there will be some more regulations brought into it for sure.
I mean, and I think also, like, you know, the U.S. has a history, like they seized gold in 1933. You know, why pay for it if you can just confiscate it? And it's a great way to.
So I mean, they told you to bring it in. I don't know who was dumb enough to bring it in, but hey, I'm sure there was some people that brought it in, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, gold used to be pegged at, I think it was $32 an ounce. That was the trading value, and then they let it go, and then obviously, and then Nixon did that Bretton Woods thing where he said they took the peg away from the dollar. So, and that was let it go, right? Let the dollar go.
The U.S. government's gold reserves are booked on their balance sheet, I think, at $40 an ounce.
It's worth a bit more than that.
It's worth a bit more than that, yeah.
The Canadian gold assets are worth. Ready?
$0.
Zero, because they said it was an antiquated asset, and I think they sold most of it at $1,200. Oops. And they don't like Bitcoin either, so oops.
Yeah, no, they. Like I said, hey, buy your own gold, buy your own Bitcoin. Don't worry about what the Bank of Canada is going to do. Get your jacket.
Get a jacket, maybe a scarf.
Yeah.
Maybe some mittens, maybe something else, or seek sunnier climates. I don't know. Mark Carney did. He took his company down south, and he took his assets down south. He's looking for sunshine, but apparently you're supposed to weather the storm.
Yeah. One day, hopefully, Jim, we land up in the same gulag. At least we'll have somebody to talk to then.
Yeah. At some point, they're going to say, you two guys got to stop talking. Anyway, thanks, Scott. It's always been fun. Again, Scott's got a unique thing. We're going to use to sponsor the show, Block Rewards. If you want to reward your employees with Bitcoin, you can do a payroll savings plan with Scott. Set your employees up, and then you can do it. The best way to get into any asset is dollar cost averaging, where you're not worried about whether it's 110, 120, you know what I mean? Like, it would just be like, as opposed to like some of those dummies that just like, they buy at the high every time, right?
Yeah.
And there you go. Yeah. So
it's Bitcoin is the most important innovative financial tool employers need to understand. So visit us at blockrewards.ca.
All right. Thank you, Scott. And thank you for watching Now Media.